Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. I'm a human who cares about supporting other humans. On this podcast, we'll explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who have found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience with them, where they've been stuck, what it feels like, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others. I believe that when we feel more connected and seen, magic can happen. And we're back for another episode of Off the Comma. And I'm just loving this experience and how it's unfolding. And I can't believe we're now at 30 plus episodes and growing. And I've got so many really exciting, every guest is so exciting. I say exciting every week, but I've got new guests lined up that I'm scheduling and recording. And I'm getting really excited about just how this grows and each new person who shows up and adds their story to the mix. And this week is also equally exciting because I have another kind of new friend, new acquaintance that we're going to be talking to this week. So we're going to be talking to Jamie Lee. She's someone who has just come into my life and my circle in the past year, and I'm getting to know. So today is going to be a great opportunity for me to get to know her a little bit more than I had before. And she and I will have I will have the privilege, I should say, of being able to spend more time with her off the microphone because she's also a neighbor. So I'm looking forward to hearing her story. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jamie. Jamie, welcome. And tell us who you are and tell us how you'd like to be known.
I would consider myself a self-healer. That's how a healer of self. I'm known as Jamie, but I also have my art name, which is Suraya, for when I do poems and things like that.
Nice. Any other words you would use to describe yourself, in addition to healer of self?
Artist, poetry, painting, fashion. Artist is the artist of everything, pretty much an artist of everything and a seeker of knowledge and wisdom.
Seeker and artist. Nice. And you and I have talked quite a bit too about the wide variety of artistic forms that you pursue.
Yes.
And I'm hoping we'll learn a little bit more about that in your story, which we'll get to here in a second.
Yes.
When you say healer of self, what does that mean?
I took my health into my own hands pretty much and started listening to my body, and I had to fix some health things. So I just kind of took it upon myself and started paying attention to what I needed and what my body was telling me to do and eat. And so pretty much I had to take it away from the doctors and do it myself.
Yeah. Well, it seems like all of these things tie together, right? The artist's way and being a seeker and using all of these things to help you heal yourself. I can't wait to see how this shows up in your story. And we're going to get started on that in just a moment. But before we get into the 5 questions and really embark on your story, I always like to ask my guests first, as you think about, this next 45 minutes to an hour that we're going to have together, what intention would you have for yourself? What would you like to have from this conversation today?
To get part of my story out there, for other people to see that they can too pull themselves off the comma is what I would say. They could pull themselves out. They can do it. They can do it. The power we have is within us.
I love that.
And most people don't know it. And because I didn't know it, it almost, ended my life. So.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like there's some really kind of big and vulnerable things to share in your story. My intention is to support you in your intention, create a container where you can share your story and for us to kind of unpack it a little bit and explore a little bit deeper, because I firmly believe, like you, that we all have the ability to pull ourselves out and that the power is within us. So I want to create a space where you can share your story, because I believe that someone or someone's out there will hear your story and recognize a little of themselves in you, and that your story will inspire someone, make someone feel a little less alone at the
Yes.
very least, and
Right.
potentially empower someone to move forward on something that they're looking forward to.
Right. Right. Definitely.
Nice. All right. Well, let's jump in. So, as always, I ask the same 5 questions of every guest. And as always, you and I haven't talked about what you're going to be sharing today. So, let's jump in with the first question. Jamie, where have you found yourself sitting on a comma in your life?
I think I would say about 2 years ago. I'm sure there's been many commas, but the one that stands out is 2 years ago when I got down to about 99 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I didn't really take it seriously at first until I looked in the mirror one day and like really looked at myself and was like, oh, wow. And so that was my comma, because I knew in that moment that I had to make like a big change, because if I didn't, then probably within that next year, I would have not been here. That's for sure. I'm very certain in that. I'm very.
That's a really big life situation, right? Because you're talking about your health and then all of these things that are contributing, potentially contributing to this. What was happening for you at this point that you've gotten down to this weight that now has caught your attention and sounds like has alarmed you?
Trauma got me there. Dissociating got me there. I didn't realize that I had dissociated. I really thought that I was living my my everyday life. And I one day I was sitting in my room, which I was doing a lot. I found myself always sitting in my room. It was like a progression. I started in the bed every day. It was always the bed, because I would lay there and try to figure out, okay, so what's the reason to get up today? Where's the excitement? There was literally nothing. It got to that point where nothing was making me want to get out of bed. So I found myself sleeping more or whatever. Then it progressed from the bed to the floor. I was sitting on my bedroom floor for months, every day. That's what I did. Mm-hmm. And one day I was sitting there and I don't know what happened. I call it an awakening because that's the only way I can describe it. But it felt like somebody switched on a light for me. And I found myself looking around my room almost as though I didn't know how I got in there. But I knew where I was. And it took me this long to realize the best way to describe it was almost like I stepped back into my body in that moment. It was like I had not been in it, even though I thought I was. And and I felt when I did it, it was weird. I felt it.
I mean, this is a big story. So, and as we talk and progress, obviously, share whatever is comfortable with you and only what's comfortable with you. But what you're describing really kind of reinforces what you shared, right? There was this dissociating that was happening in your life. And when you say trauma, there was a trauma that happened that triggered this dissociation?
I feel it was multiple traumas, multiple from childhood on up. It was like a repeat of traumas. And I was someone that was like, I would take the hits and keep running. I was that, okay, well, I'll be fine. That'll be okay. Even though it was stuff that was like life altering that I probably should have sat in the moment and felt it and dealt with it and things like that. I just kept going. And that got to the point where I couldn't go anymore. It was like there was no more going. I had to do something or I was going to die.
Yeah. Jamie, you're describing, I mean, it sounds like it wasn't like, oh, this thing happened to me 2 years ago and then suddenly I lost all this weight. What I'm hearing you say is this kind of things had been slowly building and building, and I had been operating as if,
Right.
you even said in different words, I had been operating as if and kind of following the routines. And then just one day, like
Right.
I saw the effect that it had been slowly having on me.
Right. Right. Because I thought I was doing okay. Because to me, I had decided I'm gonna work on myself when my last kid is 18. That's what I told myself. Because I felt like, wow, I have the children. My trauma has nothing to do with them. They didn't ask to be here. I brought them here. My trauma is my trauma. It shouldn't or it shouldn't touch them in any way. So I knew that I was holding it all in. I wasn't someone that was running around thinking I had it all figured out. I knew I was keeping it in. I had a plan. You know what I mean? I was going to fix it and get it taken care of when she was 18. I made it to 17.
Wow. Wow, that's something, right? I mean, I'm not a trauma specialist. I don't have any experience or background in trauma, so we're not here to diagnose or treat or anything like that.
Right.
But we are here to give you room to unpack that. So, what I'm also noticing is in what you're sharing is this. Something's happened to me. You know, your experience. Somebody else could take their own experience and kind of insert it here. Something really significant has happened in your life. And what you've described is over this period of time, you've been postponing it with a plan to do something about it, to help yourself, whatever the words are later. And you felt you didn't fall. The plan fell short by 1 year.
Right.
By 1 year and caught your attention.
Yeah.
So what was that like at that time? We'll move into the second question here shortly, but I want to kind of just continue to unpack a little bit further. This kind of point in time, you're looking in the mirror, it's caught your attention. It's now put you, well, let me ask a question here, because you said, and then I was dissociating. It sounds like you had been dissociating for some time and you might have gone deeper into the dissociation.
That's what I've been trying to figure out was how long was I asleep? That's like, I really been like, going over this in my head. I don't fixate on it, but from time to time, I'm like, okay, when did you fall asleep? And I do go over my life and try to figure out like, what was the one that did it? But there were so many. And, it's not just that. I've had a lot of rare health things. I've had a lot of rare cancer, aneurysms, stuff that you would only get if you go to other countries. I've never been out of the country. Like it was so many different things. And the traumas were traumas that, there's like, we have rape in there. We have abuse in there. We have, it's so abandonment. It's so many different things and they just never stopped. They just kept coming. And I just kept, dodging them, feeling them, but dodging them. And then I think what helped me get to 17 years, it's not something that I would ever glorify or anything, but I believe it was my getting addicted to my pain medicine, if I want to be really honest, because I feel that it was given to me at the right time. However that sounds, it was given to me due to my cancer. And, before I started to take that, I was already reflecting on things with myself. I was already feeling like I was too serious of a person. I was too, the fun was leaving. I was always uptight. And when I got the cancer, that's when they gave me the medicine and they put me on so many a day. When I started taking the medicine, I started feeling like Superwoman. I started feeling like I could hide the stuff. Like it wasn't affecting me at all. I could just go. I could be mom. I could go to work. I could do all these different things because to me, I didn't look at it as being addicted. I looked at it as my doctor gave me these. He gives me these religiously every month. So you're not addicted. You're taking them like you're supposed to take them. It wasn't until I got up to taking 20 a day that I realized it was a problem.
Yeah. Can I jump in for a moment? And I just really, really feel compelled to acknowledge you because these things, that you've shared with us very shortly, these are big things. I mean, that's no light weight to carry. No wonder you felt better, and no wonder you took advantage of that, used that as you were told you were supposed to. But definitely want to acknowledge you for all that you've carried. I mean, and I mean, that is to be acknowledged for even carrying that. So now here you are. And where does the use of the medication fit in relationship to the losing the 99 pounds? Are we in a close proximity to each other, or losing down to 99? I'm sorry.
Right. Well, sometimes I do know that, if I'm correct, sometimes taking that large amount of it can affect your weight and eating. But was that completely it? No. I feel that I've had an eating issue since I was a kid, me, honestly, because I'm the type of person where I could be starving and you can make me a whole bunch of food. But the minute something happens or my nervous system is affected in any way, it instantly leaves. And sometimes that could last. I literally have to physically make myself eat because it will leave. There will be no want to eat food at all. Mm-hmm. So it's like a form of an eating disorder, but I don't know. It's not like anorexia or anything like that. No, it's literally tied to like my nervous system.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've really already started to paint a canvas for us. I mean, even as an artist, right? You're painting a story for us right now. Like, it's really not just about the weight, is it?
Right.
It's not just about pick one trauma. It's not just about where you are in your life. I mean, these are all things that have, in a way, it sounds like, and correct me wherever I misrepresent what I'm reflecting back. All of these things have, in some way or another, sort of kind of attached themselves to your identity, and they have all these intersections of and connections between them. I mean, one could say no wonder, that it kind of came to a head.
Right. Oh yeah, it had to. I didn't think it would. I think I was like most people who think, well, as long as I don't talk about it, as long as it doesn't exist, I can't see it, it's okay. But it's still in you, and it's still affecting your nervous system, your health. It does more damage than people think, and even myself, because I didn't expect it to come to head like that. No, because I thought, like I said, I'm doing okay. I'm holding it together.
Well, and so here you are, and it's this point in time where you call it, you've had this awakening. You've seen yourself in the mirror. You went into this deep period of dissociation, and then something starts to wake you up. So let's go into the second question.
Yes.
So given what you've described, this comma you've been sitting on, this is a lot. And you are at this point now where you've had this moment in the mirror, you've noticed the weight loss, you went into this period of dissociation, and then you said these messages or these signals started coming to you, these signs, and so you started to awaken. What has the situation created? Like, what happens next in this story?
As far, well, if I'm hearing it correctly, I at that point, I had two choices, which was continue down that path and probably die in a couple months to a year. And that's just being completely honest. Like, that's how bad it was. Or I had to step out of my circle that I had myself in and do something differently in order to change that. So that's when I started getting back more into my spirituality, which I had already been, but I had kind of stepped away from. So that's when I started only eating the things that I craved, spending more time in nature, getting back to the things that I used to love that I had kind of forgot that I loved, if that makes sense. And that's kind of, I'm a little bit past that right now, but that's what happened after that point. It was certain things that I had to figure out what were things that worked for me to keep me out of the depression, to keep me out of the anxiety, and for me, it was always music, art, nature, spirituality. It was always those things for me.
You kind of described, the things that you did. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what was happening for you on the inside during this particular point in time. You
during the time when I was 99 pounds.
Yeah, and as you moved through this awakening, I mean, you described some of what was happening for you before.
Yeah, it was chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
It was chaotic. It was because it was so many different things spiritually. That is a whole nother story that I was seeing.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, before that, it was hell. People talk about heaven and hell being destinations that you make it to once you leave here. And I say, no, heaven and hell is found here because I've lived in both and inside you. So when you can't escape it, and that's pretty much what it was. It was to the point where I couldn't escape it anymore. It was really dark inside. I don't want to say dark. I want to say more, it was sad. There was before that. So that's why I say it was chaotic, because it was so many different things going on. Like that sadness and not wanting to be here, and the depression was fighting against whatever this new creation was, and that was a very tough battle that I literally probably just got out of when I met you, literally, because it was like I was stuck in two bodies. It was like there was this shell, which was my body. And then there was this person stuck inside that shell. And the person inside wanted to get out. They wanted to go do art. They wanted to go to poetry spots. But my body was still stuck in what it was before the awakening. So that was a battle it's a really tough battle. It can be depressing because when you're screaming inside, you want to go out. You want to go in nature. You want to, but your body is like, no. That it's not as simple as people would think it would be.
Yeah. Well, so little in life is simple, right? And yet even just the way you try to describe the situation, I think in and of itself is really descriptive, right? Like, it's just not even easy to explain, is it?
It's not.
Or to put into words. And yet,
it's not.
Yet what I do see in what you're sharing, it seems, is that there was definitely a part of you that was ready to break out of what it had been.
Oh, yeah.
And yet there was this other part of you that was very trained, programmed, entrenched in maintaining the way it was. And suddenly there's a conflict. Can we come back to this point of awakening for a moment? And
yes,
I don't want to naively say, oh, okay, what was the thing? Because it's never that simple. But for you, how did you know you were awakening?
Literally in that moment. And like I said, I can describe it all day, but I still don't feel I'll ever give it justice to what happened when I feel like I stepped back into my body. It was a completely different person. It was a completely different. I ate differently. Like for example, I craved edamame for days. I just ate edamame, and I sat there one day and I was like, "You haven't had any protein. What you need to get your protein." So I'm freaking out. Something tells me to Google edamame. So I Google edamame, and it has like one of the highest proteins in it. So it was like everything that I was craving, I would go look it up, and I promise you it was everything that I needed. Even with simple things like an ingrown toenail, I was listening to spirit. I was listening to my intuition. I would meditate. So I would wake up with answers to things. Like when I had a tooth infection, didn't know what I was going to do. And I woke up, had the answer, literally went in my kitchen, made it, and cleared my own. That's when I knew, like, okay, I'm not tripping. So I literally started running with that. Literally, that's pretty much what I did. I started listening, and I started paying attention to my thoughts, because so many of us, I didn't even realize there are people that are here that don't even know that there's a voice inside of their head that's constantly talking to you. Mine was feeding me negative stuff. I didn't pay attention, didn't realize that voice was in there. But now, once I woke up, Oh, I was very aware of it. Very. And that's when I was able to start doing the work inside, because once you're aware of that voice, now you have some type of control, because you get to decide if that voice is going to keep playing that same negative song or if you're going to switch it. So it's work. It's not easy. I'm not even going to pretend it's easy, which is why I feel most people do avoid that work, because it's 24 hours a day work. You have to monitor your thoughts almost as if you're a correctional officer.
Yeah. Well, the journey is not for the faint-hearted, is it?
No.
And notice what I'm seeing. And of course, you and I are here face to face on Zoom.
Right.
Our listeners don't get the benefit of being able to see you and your smiling face. But the animation, when you described, I'll call them the dark days. Those are my words, not yours. But when you described the dark days, you were kind of lower in your energy, hard to describe and so forth. But for these past couple of moments that you've described exactly how you leaned into your awakening and stepped into your body, your energy level was up. You were clear. You were passionate. You were convicted. You were energetic. Like I can just see the energetic shift in you when you talk about when things changed.
It was huge.
I think there's probably people out there who would say, well, what do I do to get that? Or how do I go about and do that? How do I go about getting that? But what you described earlier was you were in this deep, deep period of kind of searching and almost waiting. And then something happened.
I think I was waiting to die, if you want to be honest, because I really feel like a part of me, and it's not like, I won't say that in the mind, because in my mind, I feel like I'm stronger than that. Something was just tired. It was tired. Because when it's the trauma for me, from I can say about 5 to like my 40s. So that's a lot of years of constantly just going and running. So I think that I was just exhausted, and I wasn't a suicide attempt person. I attempted suicide at 18. Once I had children, I had decided for me that thought would never enter my mind. I don't speak on anyone else, for myself, because again, my trauma is not my children's problem. It's that, no, it should have nothing to do with them. Do I share it with them? Yes, I do, because I want my children better prepared. But it had nothing to do with so for me, it would have never been going back to doing something like that again, not with my children. So I don't know if somewhere mentally I just made this decision, or somewhere a decision was made, well, we're just going to ride it out till it stops, or what. So I think I woke up at the right time. I woke up when I was supposed to wake up, because if I didn't wake up that day.
What a powerful journey. What a difficult journey. I think there's a lot of us out here who would say, I don't know if I could make it through. So, that's a huge acknowledgement to you. And what I think I'm hearing you say is, that sometimes when we go out, people who are listening probably most likely have an interest in their own development and maybe their own evolution.
Right.
They're seeking too. And so human nature is such that it's like, well, how do I do that? I kind of touched on that earlier, but what it sounds like, what I'm taking from this, for me, let me be clear, is that you had carried these burdens for so long, it got to a point where, in your own words, it broke. It had to break. Yeah. And then you were faced with the choice of, I can completely let it go on and fully break, or you didn't say this, but it sounds like there was a point of surrender. And once you surrendered, then new things started to flow in. Right.
But I had to take the power. I couldn't, I think before that point, I was waiting for someone to save me, kind of thing. And I had to realize that person was me. It was myself. And that's what I would say. That is what I would say for other people. Everybody has it within them. We all do. That's why I don't see myself as a healer of people. I see myself as a healer of self, because to me, a true healer teaches other people that they too can heal themselves. They're not teaching you to come to them like, they're, the almighty, pretty much. They're showing you that just like they have it, you have it.
Showing by example, right? You're kind of a light on the path. right? Yeah,
Right.
that's really powerful. There are those who teach and show people, and tell people what they're supposed to do. And then there's other people who are like, no, you know what to do, but let me just be an
Yeah.
example.
Right. Right.
Jamie, let's go to the third question. When you look at all of this that you've shared with us, such a big story, what did you learn about yourself as a result of this awakening and having sat on this comma?
That I'm stronger than I thought, and that the power has always been within me. That's for sure. I'm stronger than I thought, and the power has always been there. I just forgot about it.
You're very clear about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I totally forgot. I'm still learning it. But the difference is I know where it's in there now. I know it's there. I know what it's capable of, and I'm still learning.
Well, it kind of blends into the fourth question. So let me go ahead and ask the fourth question a little early, and then we'll go back and forth between them, right? So what has changed for you as a result of this learning?
Happier, I think I would say. I'm happier. I would say I live from the inside out now instead of the outside in. Most people feel that the happiness is outside in, and it's not. It starts inside out. So I had to reverse that, and that's how I live now.
What does that mean? Can you take that a little bit further for us? So I'm thinking about the person who's sitting in a car listening to these words right now and kind of referencing what's going on in their own lives. What would you say to them that living from the inside out means?
I feel that we are the creators of our world. I feel that God is within us, and that we are the creator of our world. So in order, you can't have hell inside, but expect to see heaven outside of yourself. It has to match. You can't have negativity sitting inside, but you're trying to figure out why you're not seeing positive. And it's like I tell my family, it's like going to a restaurant and you're telling the waitress, you want chicken. I want chicken and I want it this way. She walks away, and for 30 minutes, you're sitting there envisioning what your steak is going to look like. You're waiting for that steak. And she comes with this chicken and she's like, here you go. And you're like, that's not my steak. And she's telling you, but you asked for chicken. You can't it doesn't work that way. It has to first be planted inside. And then as it is, you're the projector. Your mind is a projector. What your world looks like is the movie screen. So if you want to see it in your world, it has to first start in you. It can't work the other way.
That is that's a big thing. And I'm taking notes here, obviously for the podcast, but also for me. That's one of the benefits of doing this work, right? Is like I'm always taking notes. And you described this earlier, right? This really builds on what you were sharing with us in your response to the second question, which is there were these hardships, and there's no diminishing that, these traumas.
Right.
But when the next thing, I'll just say that, presented itself to me, as you described, this awakening presented itself for me. You yourself said earlier, I had to do things. I had to take it. I had to start paying attention. I had to start listening. I had to do these things.
Right.
And so now what you're sharing here is like, yeah, there's work. You have to do work. And it starts with just getting clear on what you want, or even, not what you said, but getting clear on what you don't want. The chicken and the steak example is a great example. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're a vegan, like it's just a metaphor, right?
Tofu and
yeah, just you can't picture one thing and ask for another and expect the one to change. And that seems to speak to exactly what you've been sharing with us, is that there's work on the inside and work on the outside.
Right. But
like your inner alignment between your inner world and your outer world.
Right. But most people, they do, they feel as long as the outside looks good and pretty, because perception is everything, right? So as long as the outside looks good and pretty, but I'm telling you, I am a living experiment. That's what I call myself. I only teach people what I have done for myself that works. That's literally it. And I'm seeing it produced in my own life. I'm seeing it, and it's not as easy as it sounds. I tell people it's like switching a light. It's not, because if you've been living, and I keep using the circle, if you've been living in that same circle that has keep getting you the same results, at some point you have to step out of that circle and throw it off. You have something different. I don't care if it's getting up at a different time or something different, so you can throw that circle off. That's what you know, because the circle's not getting you anywhere. You're seeing the same results. It might be different stories, different people, but the end result is the same. And with that stuff, also, I want to go back to the beginning. With that, once you do have an awakening or whatever, you know, word someone else might want to use, once you do have that, you start to see the trauma that was in your life differently. You don't look at yourself as a victim. While you're in it, you carry it as your armor. I did that. I walked around, and I don't feel I did it because of anything other than I wanted people to know, hey, I've been through this and I can help you too, type thing. Before I was a victim. I did see myself as a victim, yes. But then I started doing the work and looking into those other people's backgrounds and how those other people were raised. And I started doing research, literally, because this was a life or death thing for me. I didn't have a choice. And once I did that, I don't regret any of my trauma. I don't regret any of it. It's tools for me. It gives me more people to reach, more people to help, more people to identify with. If you know, an alcoholic is not going to want to get alcohol advice from someone that has never touched a drink a day in their life. I would not. I would not. I don't care about the books you've read. For me, I want someone that has walked in my shoes. So you know the symptoms, you know what I'm going through, you know the thoughts I might be having. So for me, that's a light. That's tools. It's more people I can talk to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much stuff in that really resonates for me personally. And alcohol is a good example, but certainly it's not the only one. The traumas, what you're describing is this process of sort of the victim becoming the teacher, but
yes,
there's different ways we can interpret that word victim, right? In coaching and therapy circles, you know, it's used intentionally to talk about mindset and being able to change your mindset. But I use it from the standpoint of maybe let's change the word to subject, right?
Okay.
The subject of the trauma.
Right.
Then this is your story. You're telling us the subject of the trauma then finds a path or is presented with a pathway to reframe or to redefine the traumas, not re-experience, but like redefine them and then use it as a tool to move forward, like you said.
Don't get stuck in it, because when you're stuck in it, that's when the depression comes, the anxiety, the nerve, that when you're stuck in it, it's when you can't stop replaying the scenarios. You can't stop, you know, because it feeds something in your subconscious brain. It feeds all those negative things that you already think about yourself. The more you stay stuck in those traumas and the things that, because I did it. I physically did it. Like it was like an armor that I wore. You could read my jacket. You'll see cancer. You'll see aneurysm. And so when I took that off, when I separated myself from it, because as long as I'm still, to me, wearing it as an armor, that means it's still inside me. I had to separate myself from it and look at it, step outside of myself and look at it from a different angle, different perspectives, dissect it. That's what I had to do. Everyone doesn't have to. But for me, my brain needed to understand why I had to go to these particular things, because I was blaming myself. So I had to find the why.
You went into, and you even alluded to this earlier when you described yourself as a seeker. You went into this total period of exploration, seeking meaning, seeking different ways to understand your situation and circumstances. Yeah. I'd love to put this out there as sort of like an acknowledgement, and then you take it where you would choose to. What I don't hear you saying is like, oh, you know, if you have trauma, then just do these things, throw it off. Like, you know, the way you describe it in this little 45, to 60-minute episode of a podcast makes it sound simple. It is anything but. And it's not that this is what you're supposed to do. This is what possibility can look like for you if you
Yes.
too
Yes.
carry trauma.
Oh yeah. And that's my whole thing. That's what it's all about. Everyone can do it. Is it not easy? No, it's not easy at all. And I probably have gotten as far as I've gotten because my medical stuff. So I had no choice but to take off work and things like that. So that could, because I've had people tell me that, oh, you're not working right now, so it's easy for you. I've had people, it's easy for you to tackle your trauma.
I love that because in of course we're both here in America,
Yes.
right? Because not working in America is so easy on us.
Man.
Right?
Right.
Not true.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But that's not the point you're making. The point that you're making is that whatever circumstance here's what I'm taking from it. Whatever circumstance you're presented with, each one is its own opportunity.
Yes.
Like if you allow it to be.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing.
Right. And no, and like I said, I'm gonna keep saying it's not easy. It's not. If you really want it, it's work. It's work. Why do you think so many people avoid it? And if you want me to be honest, if I wasn't put in the position that I was put in, I don't know if I would have tackled it or not. I kept telling myself I would at 8, when my daughter turned 18, but I don't know. I was forced to. So that's a difference. I didn't have a choice. So, but it is doable. I tell people it's doable. It's been 2 years for me. I'm still going. Healing to me is never ending. Just like learning, knowledge, and wisdom is never ending. I feel we're forever learning. We're forever growing. We're forever evolving. So, but it's possible, especially if you have a good support system. That's even better. That's even better. I kind of did things by myself, but I'm that person. So everybody's different. You have people that they do have to have that. I'm one where I kind of got to tackle it by myself. And then when I come out of it, so everybody's different, but I didn't have hope. No, I didn't have hope. Not my first year. I thought it was full of crap. If you want to be honest.
But it sounds like there was perseverance. There was something. Let me ask you, what was it that allowed you to stick through this? What was it that kept you going? You said it wasn't easy. It didn't happen right away. That this took time.
The fact that I feel like I came here with a purpose, and I felt this way since I was a little girl. And I felt like if I gave up, I would never fulfill that purpose. That's literally why. Yeah, because I'm very strong in that purpose. I'm passionate about that purpose, because when you have lived a life in hell, when you have been to the dark, when you have been that sad and you know what it feels like, why would you want other people to go through that? And that's my thing. That's my thing. Because it's not easy, and some people don't make it. And I'd like to be a part of helping people to get past that.
Well, and you again, you're modeling and showing us, a possible way, because in turning this situation around and sharing your own experience, you're showing people what it's like to experience things, to go through the journey, and then there's also plenty for you to share, right? So anybody you're somebody that could be confided in, for somebody who feels like, hey, you get me, and you know what it's like, right?
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a light.
I love that. So you described, kind of a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning, even if it was a dim light, but it was definitely a thread through everything. Like despite everything, there was still something.
Right.
Like you said, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Jamie, let's go to the fifth question, the last question here. What does getting off the comma look like for you?
Let's see. It looks like becoming a full-fledged life coach.
Now, I know what you mean by that, but why don't you share with our listeners what that means for you?
I will be starting school in July to become a certified life coach. And I'm super ecstatic about that.
What made you choose that path? What this first of all, that's exciting. And
Right.
and why? Why this path?
Well, like I said, my husband came home with his flyer and it was your picture on there. And, I was literally, when he bought it, I was in that space where there's the body and the person stuck inside that wants to do things. So I was literally trying to figure that out. And he comes home and he gives this to me and he's like, give it a try. And I was like, I'll see. So talking to you, it was like, I don't know. The timing was, I can't even explain the timing. Because it was like you handed me the baton just from talking. And with that baton, I've been running since.
It is really interesting, right? Like to kind of step into your story for just a moment. This is, I don't know what the relevance is, but we're going to share this anyway, because there might be something in that for everybody, right? But like you said, timing and when life presents things, everything that's presented as an opportunity. I myself,
right.
I encounter your husband on a fairly regular basis here in our neighborhood. And I remember sharing with him, I think it was the podcast postcard, right? And I was looking for more guests and so on and so forth. And I was like, hey, and oh, by the way, I'm a life coach, because that's what we do, especially if you're self-employed, you're going to be out there like, shaking hands and kissing babies, right? But it's because, I mean it. Like I want to interact with people and help people. But I handed it to him, and I think I was talking to him at the point about, hey, if you ever want to be a guest on the podcast or whatever. And he's like, oh, you're a coach. Right. He's like, my wife wants to be a coach. I'm like, no shit, really? And then knowing that we were neighbors. And so then he handed that off. And then it was just like the whole, oh, have her call me. Right. But then funny, because I was walking, I think, to the farmer's market or something like that, and ran into him in the parking lot. And then he's like, oh, you got to come in and talk to Jamie right now. And then you and I just hit it off right then and there. So yeah, this wasn't like, oh, I was knocking on your door and twisting your arm.
Right.
Like, these little things found each of us.
Synchronicities, yes. And that was really stepping out of my comfort zone because, years ago, no, I was like everywhere, talking to everybody, friends everywhere, poetries, everything. But after the hermit stage I went through, that was really, but I pushed myself. The thoughts were there. No, don't do this, Jamie. But now it's different because I can hear them and still keep going.
Well, and it's been an inspiration to me too, because obviously every person that I come across, I've started to really dial in and tune into what I can learn from them and their story and their experiences. And it's just been, these times that we've gotten together, it's just been delightful to get to know you and to hear your stories, the parts of your story that you've shared today that I didn't know about continue to inspire me because, whenever I feel a certain way or I'm going through a challenge, I can look at the other folks in my life and be like, okay, if they can do that, then I can do this. And so that's how we're all kind of helping and supporting each other. So
right.
Well, we thank you so much for sharing your story. And this one was a big one. And I know there's a lot of heavy elements in that. And yet taking us through the journey of your life in getting us to this post-awakening period, like just so much that you shared with us, and showing us about what it's like to carry burdens and then to be able to make choices. And so I've taken a lot from that. I want to ask you, as you look back on the last 45 minutes or so, what would you acknowledge yourself for in being here and sharing this story with us?
Just being here, coming out of my shell. It's coming out of my shell time. Yes, I'm on fire now. So yes, this is the beginning of it. This right here is the beginning of it.
I have to say, I don't know that this is the beginning of it. You were out of your shell in here in such an inspiring way, and so perhaps it's the beginning of the next leg of your journey, or or wherever this is going to take you. But I would definitely challenge back and say, I think that coming out of the shell has already been happening. It's already been on that journey. For sure. Jamie, tell us, for folks who are listening, where could they find you? Again, keep in mind, I'm going to put any links and so forth in the show notes. So where could people find you if they wanted to learn more about you or look you up?
They can find me on Instagram and it would be su.ryah. But it's going to be in the footnotes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And then one other thing that I like to do with all of my guests, because it's an important element of the podcast, because the podcast is all about sharing stories and lifting people up and inspiring each other through, our experiences. So I invite all of my guests to offer up any acknowledgments. If there's a creator or a cause or somebody important in your life that you would like to give a voice to and, maybe shout out to or publicize, that's what we do here. And some guests, it's, organizations, some guests, it's creators, sometimes it's books or films or what have you. So who or what would you like to acknowledge today?
Can it be a couple things?
Sure.
Okay. So one is the book that I first started reading after my awakening, which is called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And it's written by Dr. Joseph Murphy.
What was it about that book that was amazing? Briefly, you don't have to get into the whole synopsis, but
the power of your mind. Everything that I was just discussing as far as how you work from inside out, the power of your subconscious mind, what it's capable of as far as healing, health things, negativity, all that. It's in this book. And it's a very old book. I would also like to acknowledge my circle of people. Being with someone when they're going through a journey like this can be kind of chaotic, especially if it's someone that's always been talkative or always been like the life of the party. When they change as a person, it could make people feel a certain way, so you do lose people in the process. You do. But I want to acknowledge the ones that have stayed in my circle and that have grown with me. It was just watching me grow, and they themselves have grown also. So I would like to acknowledge them. And I'm not done. I would still like to acknowledge Paul for doing that, being led by spirit to drop off that flyer that day. That's what I want to do too.
Thank you for that. I'm very humbled and grateful for that. So I like you. That's what I want to be in the world. That's what I want to represent.
That's right.
And it's not because I want to be some kind of saint or anything like that. That would be lovely, but I just want to be a good person.
Well, let's travel the world and do that, Paul.
Well, yes, I love it. And we're all here. We all have these gifts, and you don't have to have 1 million followers to share your damn gifts. Just share the damn gifts, right?
It's like parables. If for anyone that reads the Bible, it's like a parable. So whatever you're speaking, your people will hear that. They will pick up on it. The ones that's meant to. I don't care if it's 3 people.
Lovely. I love it. Jamie, I have so enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for really opening the box on this one and really, kind of sharing of yourself, especially with everything that you've shared. And I look forward to more offline conversations. I believe we have ourselves a lunch date in the not too distant future. And I wish you a very lovely rest of your week. And I will be talking to you again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What an honor it is to witness these stories from these amazing human beings, and today's guest was no exception. I invite you to think about what you learned from this conversation. What stood out for you? What challenged you? What inspired you? And I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling and reflection. I can't tell you how magical it can be to set aside your expectations and just let your thoughts flow out of your head and onto paper. You don't have to have an agenda. You don't have to do anything with it, but you can be amazed at what comes out of your thoughts and onto paper and what that can do for you. I know freestyle journaling has been a powerful practice in my life for a very long time. You just never know what you might discover about yourself. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. Follow me on social media at Off the Comma, and also look for upcoming workshops and events at offthecomma.com, or better yet, go to offthecomma.com and sign up for my mailing list and let me bring the news directly to you. I am passionate about keeping this podcast ad-free so that we create a safe container for people to be able to tell their stories uninterrupted by commercials and promotions. I currently cover all the production costs, and I'm happy to continue doing so. And I'm also open to and appreciative of any donations that anyone would like to contribute. This is nothing more than to be able to support the podcast and cover some of the monthly editing and producing and equipment costs costs that are associated with this podcast. So look for the donations link in the podcast descriptions wherever you find this podcast. Be sure to like this episode, follow the podcast, and more importantly, spread the good word. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. As always, keep noticing.